Welcome back to Disneyland in Orlando, Florida. This is the Project Management Podcast, and we're coming to you live from the PMI 2015 Global Congress. With me is Frank Saladis. Hello, Frank.
Hey, Cornelius. How are you?
I am doing very well. And before we do anything else, congratulations. You received an award yesterday evening. You are it's the PMI Distinguished Contribution Award that you have received, right?
That's right. That's what I received.
That is very nice. I am not worthy. So you've been doing project management and giving to PMI for the past 2,500 years, it seems.
Yes, that's what it is. Yes, it is. Exactly 2,500 years.
So congratulations on receiving that award. That is
thank you very
really
much.
nice to see. My first question to you is looking into the future. What do you think 2016 is going to bring to project management?
Well, every year some things change a little bit, and I actually follow trends and things like that so that I can get up on what's going to happen. And one of the things you probably hear commonly is Agile will continue to grow. I think people are beginning to see, not just in the software and IT field, that there are techniques in Agile that can be adapted for what we'll call more traditional projects. So I think we'll see that. I see, me personally, because of what's going around in the world the past several years and things, is a lot more interest in disaster recovery and business continuity. I think that, and they are related to risk management, and I think that the general business population, the environment, probably hasn't really been paying enough attention to risk. You can see that so many companies are now being hacked. We have security issues and so on. And maybe it's time to step up and see, pay more attention to the risk factor. And with all the disasters that you see, the recent flooding in Columbia, South Carolina, fires in California, things like that, that we have to really anticipate these kinds of things more, that we have to look for ways to prevent them, to mitigate the possibilities, and then we have to react when, if they do occur, that we have the contingencies in place. So those are some of the things that I see that are going to drive project management in the future. The other things that I could think of would be that we're still looking for better ways to protect the environment. So there are new energy sources, the wind and the sun. I see lots and lots of opportunity there for projects that are going to become what we call smart cities, which have already started in various places around the world. And you're going to see more and more of that use of renewable energy and a little bit more focus on the ecology and the environment.
All right. Your paper and presentation is titled The Indispensable Project Manager. Why this topic?
Well, it starts with the fact that most project managers would pretty much agree that what project managers do is not really appreciated. And for many years, a lot of my colleagues, we even joke about it a little bit, that the project management is the unappreciated profession. A lot of people know that there's project managers out there. They don't really fully understand what project managers do. But if you think about, I'm associated somewhat with the PMI Educational Foundation, and one of their goals, one of their missions is to show the life skills of project management. So I kind of thought about that and said, project managers really have quite a bit of knowledge about a number of different things, and they are groomed and become leaders of teams. So my thought here is, how do we get people to be, more conscious of what project managers do? And I came across an article about being indispensable, and I said, let me look into that. And what it means to me is that you have to become like a go-to person for the organization. And how do you get to be a go-to person? That means that you have to show that you're producing value, that you can get things done, that you are a resource that people would want to seek you out if they needed some help. So that's kind of the beginning of this whole being indispensable. And the other part of that is that I joke around about, project managers being unappreciated. And, if you really think about it, if you were to ask any child anywhere, what do you want to be when you grow up? How many of them are going to say, well, I want to be a project manager?
Yeah, not as many.
That's right. So we have to fix that image of the project manager being this task-oriented individual and turn that image into, wow, they're doing wonderful things. They're creating fantastic products and services. They're changing the world. And how do you do that? You start to show people just how much you can do. And that's where the root comes from.
All right. I was surprised to see, however, that section 1 in your paper is titled Managing Your Personal Brand. How does personal brand help me to become indispensable?
Well, think about whatever it is that you do. And again, I joke around this sometimes in the classroom, but I will pick any particular person that's sitting in the room, and I will ask him or her to introduce herself. And then I will simply say, John is excellent. He's got an excellent reputation. He does excellent work. And I get everybody in the room to give him a round of applause because he does excellent work. Okay? And then I walk to someone else and I point to them and have them stand up and I say, Ed does good work. And you know what you get? You get the exact same, you get the same reaction. Everybody starts laughing. Oh, this guy does good work. Poor him. Oh, we like the excellent guy. And I said, good is okay until excellent came along.
Right.
So a little bit of premise there. So the issue of brand, and I have a very simple formula. A lot of people have similar ways of explaining it. But what you have to do personally, is you have to show to other people, to organizations, that you are producing value. Okay, and value, it can be defined in many ways besides money. Okay. Whatever it is that you do that's going to produce value in your terms and in their terms, okay, that is significant. Now, if you are continuously producing value, then people will be coming back to you time and again because they need whatever it is that you are offering. Now, that is an indication of brand, okay? When people keep coming back to you and other people begin to notice you, and before you know it, a lot of people are talking about you and what you do and the things that you've accomplished and so on, and that you're the person to go to for these kinds of things. Now you have brand. Value produces brand, right? Brand is an indication of success. If you go and keep doing these kinds of things, people keep coming back to you. You're a successful person. How do you sustain success? Well, you have to produce value. So it's a very simple, equation, basically. Value, brand, success. Continued success means produce more value.
Right. And in this particular case, brand has nothing to do with having a logo or like Coca-Cola with the red collar. It's really how you are being perceived as a professional within your organization. He or she delivers value. This is the go-to person that we have to go and see. Does that where
That's
the
exactly what
connection
we're
is?
talking about. We're talking about you personally have established a reputation, and people will seek you out because of the kinds of things that you do, the value that you produce, and people feel that, we really need to have this person around to do that. So that's where the brand comes in, and having that feeling of being sought after indicates that you're being successful. And again, it goes right back to continue to produce the value.
You also talk about relationships in your paper. How do relationships come into play here?
Well, if you think about project managers, and I was in a couple of sessions this morning when they talk about relationships, project managers, for the most part, don't own the resources that they need to manage the projects to reach conclusions. So you have to get resources from other places, and you also, in many cases, are competing for those resources internally. Your ability to establish relationships with people that have the resources is critical. That's one. Establishing relationships with the people you are going to work with on your team, your boss, your stakeholders, these relationships actually kind of sets the stage as to how well you're going to be able to accomplish all of your goals. So it is, for me, I point this out all the time. If you don't feel that you're very good at relationship building, then work on it and practice it because it's critical. And the bottom line to it is that we personally, we can't really get anything done without working with other people. So why not have a good, positive relationship with them? And I'm not talking about being friends and things like that. I'm talking about a good, solid, professional relationship that's respectful, that is sharing, and allows people to say, I'd like to help this person, that person has helped me, and we move forward. That's what I mean by that.
Okay, so now that we have our personal brand, we have shown that we can deliver value consistently, we've become the go-to person. we're moving into becoming indispensable. Can you first of all tell us what you mean by indispensable?
Well, yeah, and I have to premise this with the first time I mentioned the indispensable project manager was at a PMI function. I think it was at a professional development day, and I had just begun my discussion about it when a person in the audience stopped me. Basically, she interrupted me and said, "No, before you go any further, I have something to say." And she was, insistent, and it seemed urgent. So I said, "Okay, well, what is it?" And she said very quickly, "My grandmother told me that if you can stick your head in a bucket of water and pull it out and leave a hole, then you're indispensable." And so I said, "Okay, I guess my presentation is over." But so I start off with this idea of being indispensable, and it's really not being irreplaceable. It's really becoming that go-to person, that the more you produce value, the more you are doing things that are contributing not only to your organization, but to your team and even your own personal development. And people see that you're a kind of what I refer to as a linchpin in an organization. You are pulling things together, you're making things happen, you're learning lots of things, you're becoming a more interesting person. You're the person that gets things done, you know how to get the information that you need. That's what I mean by indispensable, that people see you as you're such a valuable part of our organization. So I kind of lead through that no one is truly indispensable or irreplaceable. But what we want to do is that while we're around, we should be making an impression.
And key competencies, they play a major role in this, right? How so?
Absolutely. Well, the key competencies, and most of them, are repeated many times in lots of surveys and things like that. Key competencies in terms of like communication, being a good communicator. And it's far more complicated than simply saying that. Not only do you have to get the message across so that the other folks can understand it, you have to be a very good listener. You have to articulate what you're driving to accomplish. You have to get people to believe in what you're doing, that it's something of value to them. A lot of people talk about that WIIFM, what's in it for me. So that's a key competency right there. You also have to be somewhat organized. You have to be able to plan. You have to be able to develop those relationships and solve problems and create teams and so on. So by doing that, we're kind of downplaying a little bit on the technology side of project management and building up on the people side of project management.
Mm-hmm. In your paper, you talk about 4 factors of indispensability. They are accomplishability, value cost, supply demand, and also likability as number 4 there. Tell us a little bit more about those. How did you come up with those?
Well, I did a bunch of research. I looked at several books, and I kind of took some of the concepts from the other books, magazines, articles, and everything. I was really searching for a lot of things. And I like the idea of accomplishability, which I don't think it's an actual word, but if people see you as someone who is accomplishing things, and I don't mean just the trivial things, but the big things that make a difference, they're going to take notice of you, okay? And that becomes part of the go-to factor, okay? When we talk about cost and value, you come with a price tag. When you work for an organization, they pay you a certain amount of money. So now we have to make sure that what you are doing is equal to or better than the pay that they're paying you for, just like anything else we buy in terms of a product. Okay, the
supply demand.
Supply demand. Okay, you have certain skills, and there are certain needs out there. If you are not replenishing your skills, you will no longer be in demand. So you have to do that. And the last one was
the likability.
The likability. And we talk about likability a lot. And I even, have an acronym about leader. Okay, the leader is a likable, energetic attitude, deserving everyone's respect. Leader. And then I focus in on that word likable. And we have discussions about that. And I said, do you really have to be liked to be an effective leader? And the general comments come back, no, you don't have to be likable. And I said, well, what's the most important word there? And they said respect. And then I said, that's great. There are many leaders out there that are not necessarily likable, but they do get things done. And people do respect them, but they don't really like them. So I think that the likability is that the more people see what you do, the fact that you're doing meaningful things, adding value, and you're treating with people with respect would make you likable. And I think, and most people agree, that likable, although not essential, really helps in you becoming a more effective leader.
The next section in the paper talks about thinking indispensable. Is that me? Do I have to start thinking of myself as indispensable? Is that where you're going?
That's where I'm going with that. You have to start thinking of yourself as being someone that really is needed in the organization, and then you have to ask yourself, well, why? And then I have words like essential and crucial and things like that. What we're looking for is people who really truly believe that I am part of the system, and that if you think about systems thinking, that a small piece that's very critical that's not there will cause the system to fail in many cases, right? So you need to find your little niche, what you do, and have that attitude that I'm really part of the system and I really belong in it, okay? And that maybe eventually I will be replaced because I'm going to get worn out. But right now, they need me, and I'm going to show how important I am. So you have to kind of think that way.
Mm-hmm. I believe your presentation is tomorrow, right?
Yes, it is.
What is the number one thing that you want to make sure that when people leave the room, this is the one thing I want you to take with you?
Okay. Basically, there's two things there. And what I want to make sure they understand is that no one is truly, truly indispensable or irreplaceable. What I'm driving at here is that your attitude should be give as much as you can to your organization, to your teams, and so on. Become the go-to person. The go-to people have the knowledge and the capability to get things done through themselves and through other people, and that organizations see the value in those people and want to hold on to them. So in a sense, you're becoming somewhat indispensable simply because that you're this critical piece in the big picture. So that's number one. Do the best you can, become the go-to person. And then I will leave them with a quote, which is kind of the background for this, that the mindset that started this for me was a quote that was given to me many years ago, and it was from Bob Ross. He wrote a book called Lead, Laugh, and Profit, and he was a speaker at the 1995 PMI Symposium in New Orleans. And he said to the audience, when you leave this earth, will you leave a vacancy or a void? And I have never forgotten that. And the thing here is that a vacancy is you're easily replaced. Vacancies are easily filled, but a void is going to take some time because you have left an impression. So if I can get that message across that you're not truly, truly indispensable or irreplaceable, but why don't you make an impression while you're there?
All right. How do we get there? Give us 2-3 steps. Where do we start today, tomorrow, in order to make ourselves indispensable?
Well, I think that I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Positive Leadership and Project Management. And I think the first step in that journey basically is to do kind of a SWOT analysis of yourself, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What are the strengths that you have? And then I suggest that you build on every one of those strengths that you can, make yourself stronger there. Okay? Look at the weaknesses. What is it that you are not comfortable with? And maybe in areas that you're really strong at, maybe put them aside to work on some of those other weaknesses, or look at the consequences and the threats associated with that. Okay, so you look at your strengths, you look at your weaknesses. Now, what opportunities do you have out there? So now you're mapping out a plan. Okay, this is my future. This is where I'm going to go. This is where I'd like to be. So you're setting up a vision for yourself. And then the threats are, what if I don't do these things? What could happen? What are threats out there? I mean, you could lose your job. Okay, your company could go under. Now, how's it going to affect you? But once you see that big picture, the next step is for you to plan out your actions. Okay, so the first step is that self-analysis. Where are you? Number 2 is find something that you do that's truly unique, that nobody else is really doing as well as you. And that helps you become that little linchpin, that little piece we really need that. And then you build on that. So now you're doing something unique, something better than anybody else. And it's not about job protection. It's simply about being very, very proud of the work that you do. And I really do this well. And everybody sees that you do that well. And then the next step after that, to me, would be, what else can you do? What other things can you learn? Stay in a learning mode all the time. And I use a quote from a master's class that I was in. The professor said, make everyone a teacher. So always be looking around If you can surround yourself with really fantastic people and talented people, you're certainly going to grow. Magic Johnson, in a keynote speech that he did at a PMI conference
in Phoenix.
Yeah. He said, play with someone better than you. Okay, so do that, because you can't help but get better. So if you kind of build yourself a little bit of a strategy using those 3 little steps there, I think that you would actually have that sense of being somewhat indispensable. And maybe I'll create T-shirts that have a big I on there for "I'm indispensable" or something like that instead of Superman.
All right. That was the indispensable project manager. Frank, thank you so much for being with us today.
It was my pleasure. I always have fun when I'm with you, Cornelius. It's just great to be here. Thanks.